Have you wondered how your hometown identity or even national identity came about? What is, or was, the meaning behind it, the story behind the name? In Taiwan, one key tenet has affected almost everything: colonization. Even up until 1996, one could still argue that Taiwan wasn't really democratic or that the Taiwanese people had any freedom. The history of colonization is heavy on the Taiwanese consciousness. Can one amputate the legacy of colonization on them? We go to Tainan, an epicenter of Taiwanese history, to dig deeper. We begin at Anping Fort.
Anping Guba, Anping Fort, is, you could say, the beginning of a East-West conflict. So between the colonizing powers from Europe and Imperial China. It takes place with the siege of the fort by the General Zheng Chenggong. He encapsulates the different perspectives on the island, Zheng Chenggong, because he was sort of the first guy that sort of claimed Taiwan as part of China. And that's what the PRC runs with. So the mainland considers Taiwan an integral part of China, and it was this general who first brought sort of Taiwan into China by taking it from the Dutch in this siege. And people here would see him in a different light. People here would see him as inherently Taiwanese. The reason for that is that, firstly, he's half Japanese, and through Dutch colonization, through commerce, piracy, trading, Taiwan is incredibly multicultural. And so people here would see him as a local hero and a local freedom fighter almost, because he sort of defined a space for Asian people, for different people from different walks of life to come to Taiwan and be here. And that's how they would see him, is sort of creating the space for a sort of a Taiwanese consciousness.
How does all of this bear on the present? History is locked inside Tainan's food cuisine. Take simuyu for example. The local name for simuyu is sabahi. When Zheng Chenggong arrived in Taiwan, the common people offered milkfish as a tribute. Zheng Chenggong asked in a strong Guangzhou dialect of Hokkien, "Sabahi."
So what's the Taiwanese name?
虱目鱼粥. Oh, that's in Chinese.
Himoi.
Which literally translates to "what fish is it?" and lots of the common people named it "what fish is it?" fish, sabahi. Another example is the abundance of oyster around Tainan shores ended up being the food reserves in the siege, and credited as feeding strength to the Ming soldiers capturing Anping. Since then, oyster production and consumption has grown in the southern cities of Taiwan. It is a staple food that reflects the history here. Another prominent fort is Fort Provincia, later renamed Chicken Tower, conceded to Zheng Chenggong in his siege of Anping, and though destroyed in various natural disasters, but then taken by the Qing forces when they took control of the area. The Japanese then extended to the police station.
Right now we're on the top of Chikan Tower.
Yeah.
Chikan Tower. And it is, it is designed and it was made by the Dutch. It's a defensive tower. Now, when you think of colonization, is kind of a bit about subjugation, isn't it? It's about controlling the populace, having authority, and having security so that they don't overthrow you. So this was basically part of that. Chikan Tower is a testament to the Dutch defensive efforts against, say, Chinese peasants, as well as when the Qing took over, they also used it to quell any uprisings. And the Japanese then extended it, made it into a police station as well as a prison. So 3 different governments, colonizer governments, using the same place for the same exact purpose. And yet, when you come here, it looks beautiful. You know, you see the blue and red, you see the tiled roofs, you see everything, and like it seems such a tranquil place when I first look at it. And yet, what's crazy is to think that this place was used to harm and deny people's freedom, essentially. So it's quite a sort of contrast to think about. Okay, Jacob, what's going on? Where are we? What are we doing?
We are now in Confucius Temple.
The Confucius Temple in Tainan was originally built in 1665 during the Qing dynasty, and it served as a center for Confucian scholarship and education. This is a mark of the island truly culturally becoming part of the Sinosphere. But the true legacy of colonization here is in the Kuomintang's treatment of the temple. Its rebuilding as well as spreading, promotion and preservation shows the priority of the Republican government. Traditional Chinese cultural practices as a form of cultural imperialism, and an attempt to erase Taiwan's unique identity. Through colonization, Taiwan was in a way opened up for more trade and commerce that allows its identity to become more multicultural and varied. This house was owned by the successful German merchant Julian Manek and ran the successful imports business. He was allowed to continue when the Japanese took over. This place reflects the idea that Taiwan quickly became a place where people of different cultures and different nations found a space together, colonized or not. The Japanese colonial project was based on making Taiwan a model colony, transforming it industrially to really capitalize on natural resources and integration into Japan's cultural sphere. The Tainan train station was built in 1901, making it one of the earliest railway stations in Taiwan. The train station served as a symbol of Japanese colonial power and modernity, dubbed soldier in plainclothes. The government buildings were designed to impress the local populace and display Japanese authority. The building was designed in the Japanese Renaissance style and featured a clock tower that became a recognizable landmark in Tainan. Thai under their law, then comes under scrutiny, as a lot of people had favorable opinions of the occupation, despite institutional replacement of local cultures. Like most colonizers, colonial relationship it lost long after independence. Taiwan's attachment to Japan still seen in pop culture, food and tourism. One example is our visit to Tainan Mitodimachi. The history of Japanese occupation is all over the country. Its Qing-era magistrate house was used as a headquarters of the Tainan government here. But its inaugural 20th century modernity in Taiwan was heralded by its Japanese occupiers. Japan lost the World War, and Republican China took over the Taiwanese colonizing project. This used to be Tainan's statehold during Japanese occupation, and then in KMT times it was the municipal government building. Used for government action and making legislation, is now the Taiwanese Literature Museum.
Taiwanese literature is part of a big part of trying to define Taiwanese consciousness, Taiwanese identity, Taiwanese experience through written language, because written language lasts, yeah? Now, the thing is, the Kuomintang, since the beginning, instated a policy of Chinese Mandarin only to an island which before did not use at all Mandarin. They only used Minahua, Zhejiahua, and 原住民的 yeah, that's right. So all of this is very foreign. Also, they use Japanese, which also was a colonized language. So in essence, you could say the Mandarin language is sort of a legacy of colonization. Now, nearly most of the works presented in this museum have been criticized as only one-dimensional because they are Mandarin focused. They are written in Chinese language, and they are written mainly by authors that have come from Dalu, from the mainland.
When the museum first opened, there was a lack of literature done by Minahua, Hakka, and indigenous authors despite real written experiments and works from such authors throughout the last century. The erasing of these languages points to the legacy of the Kuomintang colonization. Thankfully, in recent times, the museum has done a lot to incorporate indigenous languages as part of the decolonizing project there.
食べたんです。お母さんがいもそれにった後このまで呼吸の発音体を作り大変よ。
Since the 228 massacre in Taipei, the KMT instituted the longest instance of martial law in the world, 37 years of authoritarian rule. 本土化 is a weird answer to the colonial legacy problem, as it turns national identity on its head. Instead of trying to build your identity from the past, you look to define it from the present.
吃果子拜树头，吃美门拜田头。An old Taiwanese idiom on how we don't take things for granted and that a source of benefits is gratitude. I think Tainan is a city that includes a lot of important past Taiwanese stories and voices.